Afternoon, everyone. Deacon Kent Ferris with the Diocese and the Social Action Office. Welcome to the first of our fall lunch and learns. The conversation today dealing with care for creation. And we'll have an opportunity to hear from folks in different parts of the diocese who've undertaken some efforts already regarding care for creation. We also hope to provide some information as to the efforts that we are undertaking here at the diocese. We begin in prayer today, and one of the two prayers at the conclusion of Laudato Si is a Christian prayer in union with creation. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Father, we praise you with all your creatures. They come forth from your all-powerful hand. They are yours, filled with your presence and your tender love. Praise be to you. Son of God, Jesus, through you all things were made. You were formed in the womb of Mary, our mother. You became part of this earth, and you gazed upon this world with human eyes. Today you are alive in every creature in your risen glory. Praise be to you. Holy Spirit, by your light, you guide this world toward the Father's love and accompany creation as it groans in travail. You also dwell in our hearts, and you inspire us to do what is good. Praise be to you. Triune Lord, wondrous community of infinite love, teach us to contemplate you in the beauty of the universe, for all things speak of you. Awaken our praise and thankfulness for every being that you have made. Give us the grace to feel profoundly joined to everything that is. God of love, show us our place in this world as channels of your love for all the creatures of this earth, for not one of them is forgotten in your sight. Enlighten those who possess power and money, that they may avoid the sin of indifference, that they may love the common good, advance the weak, and care for this world in which we live. O Lord, seize us with your power and light. Help us to protect all life, to prepare for a better future, for the coming of your kingdom of justice, peace, love, and beauty. Praise be to you. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. It is good to see you all, to see so many of you joining us. Though the season of creation concluded a few days ago, the amount of activities that have been undertaken relating to care for creation is so numerous. We thought we wanted to spend some time today talking about the efforts both that the diocese has undertaken as well as those that have been undertaken locally by parishes and parishioners. It is not an unusual arrangement, though, because though we're now into October, October is also Respect Life Month. And the two go together very well. The encyclical that was written in 2015 talks about three types of relationships: our relationships with the Creator, our relationships with each other, as well as our relationship in the greater created world. So even though it may be discussing much about care for creation, this is as much a respect life conversation as any that we will have. Before getting to the specifics as to what we've been able to undertake here in the office for the benefit of the diocese and chancery operations, we would like to take a few moments to talk about some of the local efforts that have been occurring. And one of the things that brings great joy is how local parishes and parishioners have merely done good things that show both care for neighbor as well as being part of the created world. And we'll share three instances of where that has happened with you today. We're going to begin with one of our own, and that would be Jean Simpson at Our Lady of Victory. Jean has done incredible work and efforts, is now part of the local team that meets weekly for the benefit of our office and the efforts that the diocese undertakes. She has undertaken a brief course of study and then implemented a plan as a result of that endeavor. And we want to give Jean the opportunity to share what she's learned and how her parish has embraced this. Without further ado, Jean. And we need to make sure you're unmuted.
There we go. Technology. Now, can you hear me okay? Wonderful. Well, it's so good to see you all. Yes, I started social action at my parish. That's Our Lady of Victory in Davenport, Iowa. And we started out talking about homelessness the first year I was there. They had done some great work, had a great speakers and things like that. I tried to run some classes. I didn't get any turnout, but my final one was like to look at a more global picture of the homelessness situation, and was really struck by how climate change was about to create a problem with homelessness and immigration to go to places where you can live. Is going to be one of the greatest homeless situations we'll face probably for sure in our lifetime. So with that, I sort of got interested in that, and then just the Laudato Si, the Pope in May of it would have been for me in May of 2020, or was it 21? Either way, he came out and did the Laudato Si. So I read the encyclical. I completely identified it. It's kind of lengthy, but not that long. A short book, you might say. But it was a cry for the earth and a cry for the poor. And my background is I'm an LISW, worked in the both the addiction field and children with disabilities area, and a lot of understanding of the background of how sometimes these issues are hard to move forward. So I really did a lot of praying at first, especially the Laudato Si. It just inspired me. It was really the seed that started the whole thing. I went to a conference in Nebraska that was, by the grace of the COVID, ended up being available to everyone for free online, no traveling. But boy, they had some of the most amazing speakers. And what I really was hearing was a reverence that I sometimes don't always hear, reverence for how we're all connected, and how this situation is really going to need God, a lot of prayer as well as action. So with that, the other thing I was impressed with, I'm always impressed with, you can tell, really the hard worker bees, and very intelligent. It was not a doom and gloom at all. It was very much took our spiritual strength of what we get from God, where all things are possible, but it was connected directly to science and practical steps that we could take. And one of the first steps was I had heard about what they call Laudato Si animators. And I don't know if any of you have been know about that program, but it was a great way to kick off and be with community across the globe. So I got on, they have them twice a year. They're about 8 to 12 weeks, depending, how many things you get involved in. But I went, and I was in my class, there was 169 people from 29 different countries. And so the small group discussions that they put us in were extremely powerful, because even though we are seeing it here in the United States, there are places where it's completely devastating their environment, and it is they are having to leave their land to go find a livable habitat. So but anyway, it felt like such a family really connection with all the people from all the different countries. So anyway, then in my prayer, there was a thing that came to me called Lesser Blessed. And so we started with a Lenten. We have a great resource here at the diocese, Deacon Frank, who has done a lot of work on the spirituality, the eco-spirituality. So let's see, close. So I went to him, and we started out all our actions. Before we did anything, we did a way of the cross. It's an ecological way of the cross, and he did a great job. And then we kicked off for Lent at what we called Less is Blessed. It's a very simple program. I'll show you a car. Oh, yeah, okay. So anyway, I don't know if that shows up, but it was just just about 10, 12 items that we put on cards and passed out to all the parishioners after every mass, the first Sunday after Ash Wednesday. And we just asked people to think about using less or less water, conserving more things, donating things they weren't using, just very real down to earth practical things. Well, that was very popular, and we got a great response from the community. Many people stopped to say, thanks, I'm glad you're doing that. But the thing that really struck me, and I don't know why, because some of these kids were 8, but they were very excited. They wanted to do something. So I think these young people are really getting, especially the young families with small children, they are desperate to make sure their kids have a decent future. And so it's not just, the land goes bad, then resources get smaller. And we know from COVID how chains get involved. So it's very interconnected. Everything is very interconnected. And they felt positive because we were doing something, even if it was small. So Laudato Si animators, I see somebody posted the address, the email address. That's great. You can call, you can email them and get signed up. Anyway, we went through about 8 weeks, and at the end we had to have a project. And so what I was hearing, I'm amongst a lot of retired women. We have grandchildren. And so I knew of at least 20 families that had grandchildren. And so I came up with my capstone project to graduate was called the Grand Adventure. And at first I had thought, I just invited all my friends who have grandkids, and I said, let's do something with our grandchildren. And this time I incorporated, after the training, there were 3 areas that they focused on. It was eco-spirituality, less is blessed, which they call the lifestyle changes, and then advocacy. So those were the 3 areas they trained us in where we could focus our work. And so I made these cards, Grand Adventure, which incorporated all 3 of those. And we went to 4 masses and talked about my Laudato animator courses and how we could do something. And we put out 500 cards, and I think 236 got picked up. And then we invited on the card, they didn't have to do this, but we invited them if they were willing to send in pictures. And I'm sorry, I don't know how to make the screen. It's behind me, but I don't know how to work technology to make it where you can see it. But they could send in pictures of what they did and just little cards and comments. And anyway, that was a very positive experience. And so then we opened that up to our parish. But first we did what they call a rosary, or it's called a chaplet. And before we kicked that off, we did a prayer to kind of keep those things in mind, about how we wanted to do it. But really, I think the thing that has moved me the most is really getting the spirit right first, and then the program second. It's really a thing that every seed of thought that I had about action we could do, hopefully was planted in that very reverent prayer space of knowing we had to do this with God, and keeping that whole spirituality part alive in whatever we did. Anyway, so then we put it out to the parish. We had good success with that. And so that's kind of my story. I think as far as future, what's going on, what I would love to see is for like a Laudato Si animator, maybe in each deanery. That's my hope. And the second one is, I don't know if any of you caught it, but it was beautiful. They released the movie from the Pope, The Letter. And I just cried through it. I cried tears of joy because nature is so beautiful. I cried tears of sadness because it's here. This crisis is here right now. So I don't know, but that seed was planted in me yesterday. Like, okay, I didn't know what my next step would be, but I think it's going to have something to do with that amazing movie that they put together. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell. That's all I've got.
Great.
So,
thank you, Jean.
you're welcome.
This is for the efforts that we will reference later that we've taken formally as a diocese, knowing that these types of activities and events were occurring at the same time, and that nobody was waiting for like formal approval to undertake these things was what energized us as we went along in the process. I don't know if we actually have a representative from this next parish with us in the moment. But I want to turn and give the microphone next to my colleague, Loxie Hopkins. And when one of the things that was remarkable as we were working from this office for the benefit of what we will refer to as a diocesan plan, what Loxie knows very well, what she has modeled for me over the 13 years that we've worked together, is the importance of staying connected with people. And the skills that Loxie brings to our effort is the willingness and ability to have conversations with folks to learn what they're doing, in much the same way that we talked about conversations during the synod process, what brings great joy, what brings great sorrow. Loxie months ago started getting on the phone and calling people. One of the conversations that really had an impact on her, and in turn our thought about today and future planning, is Jesus Christ, Prince of Peace, King of Peace parish in Clinton. And so with that, I'm going to ask Loxie to share, if first of all, if you're from Prince of Peace parish in Clinton, please let us know, because it may very well, oh my gosh, okay, so good. So maybe what we do is combine the two of you that are actually there, and maybe we step back and just say, tell us about the ways that Care for Creation has been part of either conversations, planning for, or steps already being taken. So Loxie, my apologies, but we're going to defer to the folks who know. So either of you can unmute yourself if you need to, or if you're unable to, let me know and we will.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. I'm Joanne Snodgrass, and I am a more recent member of Jesus Christ Prince of Peace Parish in Clinton. I've been there about 3 years. I've been on the Justice and Peace Commission for a couple of years. And I was so excited when I heard about the Laudato Si Action Platform going to be coming out. And as I shared that passion with the commission, I was pretty frustrated. At 3 different meetings, I gave an overview and the sites of where to find the information about the platform. And it just became evident that for some reason it was overwhelming for them to engage that. And there was no will to engage it as it is designed to be used. And I think, personally, I think it is a beautiful process, because I think it gives great hope for lasting change. So in light of that, what we were able to do is engage a few issues that came up. One of them was I volunteered at a parish funeral luncheon and was saddened to see all of the polystyrofoam products that were being used as disposable dinnerware. And so I asked the person who was in charge about it, and I was just referred that, they just get whatever the parish orders. So I brought it up at our meeting, and we discussed where those things were coming from. We discussed the concerns about cost, and so I did some searching online and found a company called Green Paper Products that had actually not only comparable, but a little bit more economical than what we were purchasing from the other company and the polystyrene products. And so with the approval of those who use these things, it was agreed that we would try them, and they have been using them, which I'm very grateful for. And Deacon Jeff Schutzley went further and investigated on the website to find that they had compostable like silverware instead of the traditional plastic thing. And so he kind of expanded it into that. I think he shared that with someone at the diocese. And I had hopes that we might do something about the styrofoam cups, but these are given to us by banks who have their logos on them. And there was an effort to have a conversation with them, and they were looking into the possibility of changing, but again, cost was the issue. And so you know, at a point, I think we need to understand, I certainly understand bottom lines, but at a point we need to look at the long-term bottom line
Right.
that's being affected. So we have accomplished that, for which I'm much grateful for. I also received information about the converting of our lighting system within the church offices, conference rooms, restrooms, and all of the rooms, as well as the parking lot lights that are being switched over to LED lighting.
Good.
About a third of the $20,000 cost was covered through an Alliant Energy Small Business Incentive Program.
Great.
So that was helpful. And it is estimated that we will experience about 71% less kilowatt usage when than our previous lights. And that's pretty amazing. And the school had already undergone the project last fall with the school facilities. So that's a big investment and a big change in long term. And then for the season of creation, oops, I got lost.
We can still hear you.
Okay, I got something popped up here. Am I still there?
Yes, you're still here.
Okay, I don't know, my screen is gone. For the season of creation, it was decided that we would have a harvest table at all of the masses where people could bring in their extra produce. And that was very well received. There was rarely anything left, and any tomatoes that were left were actually gladly received by one of the local Mexican restaurants that to make their salsa. So
beautiful.
That's and in addition, I learned that the Clinton Franciscans, who are way ahead of all of us in this project, and have so much that they can teach us, actually spoke with our junior and senior students in the Catholic school. So I was very encouraged by that, and I'm hoping that we can build on that by having them come to speak to our religious ed classes and maybe even some of our adult education classes, just to kind of get more people hearing about this effort to do what Jean made so clear affects us all globally, not just our pocketbooks right now.
I love the account of the effort undertaken at your parish. I love the candor and honesty about understanding resources, the educational, inspirational resources available, and trying to figure out where people are in the moment, and the reality too that what we're talking about can be incredibly overwhelming for somebody who's trying to figure out where we go, how we begin, how we take into account. Oftentimes we talk about a praying and a learning and an acting model, moving from one to the other. Jean's comments about grounded in prayer and in holy inspiration is valuable. I'm so grateful that you were able to be on the call and share with us the different twists and turns along the way. The other part of this too is we talk about efforts and trying to understand what we have already undertaken and what we're capable of doing in this moment, ever mindful that what we're talking about is an ongoing year after year effort. And I think in this moment, it gives us some energy to say from this point forward, St. Francis admonished early followers to say, let us begin again, for up to now we've done nothing. And that was kind of his way of gently prodding people. I also appreciated the reference to the religious sisters, my cousins of sorts, the Clinton Franciscans, who have had an action plan, a Laudato Si action plan, a year and a half out ahead of the diocese. And so in the same way that you talk about youth being able to be educated by religious sisters in your local community, this type of gathering and conversation is an opportunity for others to learn and hear and share in order that good ideas can be shared. Loxie, I do want to give you the opportunity, and Lainey, if you have anything else you want to add from Clinton.
There is a question regarding the link for the materials that she used for Clinton, the products mentioned. Does she have the link?
We will work with the parish out of Clinton to get the company's contact information. We will provide that in follow-up. Loxie, you found it remarkable, the conversations. What can you tell me about the energy you heard over the phone line?
Well, when I talked to Deacon Schutzley, I was like, oh my gosh, I think that he talked about as they had built their addition that they purposely switched out some water heaters to smaller size water heaters that would be more environmentally friendly, and the extra insulation that they put in their buildings, and even talking with the Franciscan sisters about wind energy. But his enthusiasm just kind of caught it with me. And I think I went to both Kent and Glenn immediately to tell them things that had happened. But the parishes, it does not have to be as big as Clinton has gone right now, because parishes like Muscatine have, and this is a 100-year-old church, but they have changed out all of their light bulbs to the environmentally friendly light bulbs and put timers in rooms, which is really helpful. In Colfax, I talked to Father Hodges, who also is concerned about the environment, and his parish has started to encourage people, instead of flowers for funerals and stuff, to plant trees, and that's what he does himself. So there's just so many things. I think St. Thomas More bought a composter, and they're using that. St. Patrick's is green, has a green ward award, and when they built their church, it was amazing the things that went into that. So I looked at what some of the things on the list that Jeannie was talking about, and there's so much that all of us can do. I'm more anxious to have more conversations with more of the parishes to hear more stories about what people are doing and what's possible.
I do want to give some attention to St. Thomas More in Coralville. I had reached out to CC Raudebush, who's part of the social action group there. She's unable to be with us today, but she gave me some of the updates regarding what their parish has been able to undertake. As Loxie just mentioned, they are recycling and composting all food, paper items and coffee grounds from coffee and donuts, using reusable mugs and real silverware that are sanitized in the industrial dishwasher. They offer recycling and composting help at the church events like dinners, pancake breakfasts sponsored by the Knights. They have place settings, cups, mugs, serving utensils used and sanitized at church events, no styrofoam, recycle all office material papers, including paper, plastic, and cardboard from office and religious ed programs. They're using rain barrels to water plantings, and all plants and are perennials except for 2 pots by the front door. The building is LEED certified. So if you have a newer building or if you're planning to build one, that's kind of the industrial standard. Loxie referenced Saints Mary and Matthias, and I would say that the LED lighting that our parish in Muscatine has been able to utilize is in the worship space, but there are timers on the other ones. Additionally, St. Thomas More is sharing a monthly bulletin item about caring for God's green earth. The commission kind of divides up and attends events and rallies about environmental issues. They are planning the more energy efficient items for the new church building, like water bottle refill stations, lights that turn off after inactivity, maximizing natural light sources, more natural cleaning supplies like vinegar, reusable bags rather than plastic, sorting bins for recyclables versus trash, moving toward video screens for songs and prayers with paper printed only for those who sign up to use that product, and then moving more bulletin items to the social media pages to reduce the size of weekly bulletin flyers. And then also always keeping an eye open for movies, videos, and articles about green topics and hosting viewings. They've got a pretty robust effort, but it's always good to get a variation of the different expressions of how folks are responding to the call for care for creation from different locations. Before we move into more information about what the diocese has undertaken over the past few months, I believe she's still on the call. It was early in 22. We had a conversation in our office. We knew that there was going to be some responsibility for responding to the Laudato Si action challenge globally. And we thought that there would be great value in bringing on a student intern, somebody that could assist us with parts of the development of a plan, but somebody also as a young adult who could combine both educational interests and the opportunity to be involved with something at the diocesan level. Samantha Sancen is a student at St. Ambrose University. I'll have her tell what her majors are, the extent to which she has been involved with the development of a plan at the diocesan level, and who she's interning, what her focus is. So there's Sam. I will let you tell folks about yourself, Sam, as well as kind of as the focus is coming clearer and clearer over the months that you've been an intern.
Yeah. My name is Sam. I'm a junior in science and theology. So
the audio is really rough, Sam. I don't know.
does this help a little
Yes,
bit?
absolutely beautiful. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, so I am a junior. I'm studying political science and theology. I took a climate change class last semester, and I was a little bit interested. I didn't have really any knowledge, going into this. But my professors really encouraged me to, try something new and, take on a little bit of a challenge. So I happen to really enjoy it. And I've been, other than working here in the social action office, I've been doing it nationally with a couple other interns, from like representatives from DC to Florida. There's a lot of people that I've connected with, both like university students and other young adults. So I've been learning a lot about what other organizations are doing. Recently in our last meeting, we talked about the rulemaking process. We've been looking at the Environmental Protection Agency and kind of what we can do to connect with different like regulations going on. Or starting a petition to raise awareness to whatever environmental issue we're passionate about. So there's a lot of things that we do with legislative advocacy. So it's really exciting, and it has a lot to do with my poli-sci major. So it's not just speaking of in a faith conversation, but also in policy and advocacy, which I think is obviously super important. one of the goals is to everyone to connect with their CCHD leaders, different groups or organizations within their local communities. And I was already a little ahead working with the social action office. And again, being a student at St. Ambrose, I've been able to connect with the professors here and the sustainability committee and like their efforts, and just giving an opinion from a student's perspective and, you know, working with people around the nation. So that's also been really like beneficial. They also are wanting us to start writing an op-ed about any issue that we feel is important in our local communities, and kind of discussing what Laudato Si is, and hopefully posting that in any of our local papers or news sites. So that's also going to be in the works. And then, you know, just talking to my colleagues, I talked to one of them that was representing the DC area, and, you know, he lives in an area where politics is super common to talk about. He was telling me it's not really a polarized issue. Everyone's really open to discussing climate change in terms of like political action. And I told him about my experience living within like the border of Illinois and Iowa. I've seen, you know, a lot of different conversations that don't go as smoothly as we would like. Talking to rural farmers, talking to students, just talking to people in different political parties. You have to have a different tone the way you talk to people. And sometimes I feel like that can get in the way. But I was able to tell him about my experience, just kind of talking to people about it, and him telling me about his, because it's just more open, obviously, to talk about it in DC. So it's been really interesting getting to know different people, and it's, you know, it's a different conversation everywhere. But you know, I'm really excited to be doing this. It's the advocacy part for like the national organization is just started last month. So it's still new and it's still in the works. So I'm obviously really excited to keep everyone updated on what's going on. But again, also St. Ambrose is doing a lot of great things. We just had our Sustainability Fest. We had a lot of different organizations, clubs come and do their own little activity and presentation. So yeah, it's been really cool.
A couple things I would add about Sam. As we looked at her application, a double major in political science and theology is really, really valuable. The opportunity to have been part of the workings and conversations that we've had this summer, I was ever so grateful for the way that Sam reached out to Notre Dame High School in Burlington and St. Ambrose to give insight in the same way that Loxie had talked about having conversations with parishes. Those types of conversations were incredibly important to understand the way folks are already undertaking some of these efforts. Before Sam gets away, though, I do want to reference that any efforts that this diocese undertakes in caring for creation and being true to environmental justice must include an element of interfaith work. And so one of the things that Sam is doing is she is both an intern, she's a Laudato Si intern for the diocese, one of 15 student interns across the United States that has that cohort group. But she's additionally an intern with Iowa Interfaith Power and Light. She's got an event coming up at the end of the month, and we will provide more information about it. But if you would be so kind as to give the 30-second PSA on that, Sam, I'd be grateful.
Yeah, it's going to be the 29th, I think, of October. It's a virtual session. It's going to be a panel of some young climate activists, as well as talking really about climate anxiety and having hope within like all of the bad news going on the second you turn on the news or something, you know, happening again. And there's still a lot of hope within that. So we're going to be focusing a lot on climate anxiety and hopeful action. So yeah, but it'll be virtual, and there's going to be a sign up registration link, but that will be, and once that all gets settled.
You can go to Iowa Interfaith Power and Light, and I'm sure that the menu dropdown will have events that are coming up, at which point you're able to register in advance. Iowa Interfaith Power and Light has been a faithful partner from as far back in relating to Laudato Si as the day that this encyclical was publicly released. It was Iowa IPL at a community college in Des Moines with the backdrops of wind turbines that two bishops, a theologian, and other faith leaders talked about the importance of the issue, not only for the Catholic faithful, but other people of faith and all people of goodwill. And so it has not been an easy road for Sam these past months. In addition to doing simultaneous internships with two entities and returning back to school, she was also overcoming a pretty significant injury that she had sustained this summer. So I am ever so amazed and grateful for the spirit and energy of a person significantly younger than myself. She brings a lot to the conversation.
Kent, we do have a couple of people on here from St. Thomas More that would like to share some of the things that they're doing there.
Absolutely. Thank you. Sorry that I didn't ask the same way I had done so for Clinton. So St. Thomas More folks, represent.
There are two of us here. I'm Jay Gilchrist. I'm recently retired in the parish, so I don't have as much of the history. I did put several points in the chat that were other things that we're doing at St. Thomas More.
Okay.
Evaleemickey is here, and maybe she can give you a little more of the evolution of the green team for St. Thomas More.
Thank you, Jay.
Sorry.
No. Where did Lee go? I think she went to unmute herself. There she is. She's coming back. And you're not muted. You're still muted, Lee.
You're still muted, Lee.
Sorry.
Oh,
There you are. There you go.
When Pope Francis wrote Laudato Si, we started a green team that year, and I put together a program for every week on Sunday during Lent that we studied Laudato Si. We had some films from U.S. Bishops Conference and other things. We had Father Grant came over and gave us a really good program one afternoon, and some of the children were there, which was wonderful because they were very attentive. So, but that's been a long time ago. And I would say that we haven't done a whole lot. We've tried right off the bat to go to more sustainable usage of things that we use in our for food and so forth. But anyhow, we're getting back to starting another green team. And as Jay said, we've visited the Unitarian, and CC Raudebusch is wonderful about doing all the things that she personally does to make sure that we don't use a lot of products that aren't sustainable. But I do want to call attention, Jay put it in about this 2-part series that we're having October 11th and 18th. The first one is a movie that was on HBO about Nagasaki and Hiroshima bombing. So we're showing that and having a discussion. Then the second, 2 weeks later, Archbishop John Wester from New Mexico did a Zoom. He did a Zoom with Father John Deere, but then he did another Zoom with Just Faith. And this is the one we're going to show on the second night. And it's all about doing away with nuclear weapons. if anyone has the latest or issue of Time Magazine, I think it was the time before this last issue, they talk about the weapons that are being manufactured in research and development. It's unbelievable because we're trying to save the planet as best we can, but just one of these nuclear weapons set off would do so much damage that it would change actually the how our world would be. So anyhow, we do have a lot of things going. Sometimes we have too much, but I thank Jay for writing that and bringing it to attention to you all.
I appreciate the comments. Yes, thank you, Jay.
This is the pastoral letter written by the Archbishop of Santa Fe. It's beautiful. You can get it. You can read it online, or you can order a copy, and it's got lots of good art in it. But it's directed towards the Archdiocese of Santa Fe, which has a large nuclear. They did testing and they did development of the bombs and everything there. But really, it's not just a New Mexico issue. It's a national issue, and it's an environmental issue as well.
Thank you. The interconnectedness of this all, in the same way that I referenced that a conversation about Laudato Si within Respect Life Month, in the same way that we talk about moving towards greater sustainability, maybe at a parish or family level, you cannot disregard the larger global impact of those types of efforts. Before we get too much farther, I'm actually shutting the call down at 12:55 in order to make a 1 o'clock call. Having said that, I do not want to shortchange the efforts that have been undertaken at the diocese. And there are 3 things that I will point out, and there's a person that I want to give like 2 to 3 minutes of his time. Glenn Leach, be prepared, because I'm going to ask you to give some insight in conclusion. When you go to the diocesan web page, there is now a button for Care for Creation. That has been an accomplishment. We owe it to colleagues here in the building, including Sarah Adams, who does social media. I see Barb on the call, the support that the Catholic Messenger shows, colleague Tony Forlini, who helps us in the background with getting information on web pages. A whole bunch of people in the building and our local office team have been able to work together in order that there is a Care for Creation page. And on that page, you'll find information about Season of Creation. And many of you may very well help us with subsequent seasons of creation from where you are, in order that September 1, October 4 gets in the minds of people and has deeper roots as to what it means going from one year to the next. Also on the Care for Creation page, you will see the diocesan action plan that we are undertaking and committing to. That plan, the ink is wet, and it is not a standalone, be done and forget about it type of project. Bishop Zinkula committed to us doing this. So we did the synod listening process, the Eucharistic revival, the Laudato Si plan simultaneously, and they have impacted and shaped each other in a profound way. We are blessed to be able to show that we can juggle more than one ball at a time. So I'm not going to go into the great look at it, but it's a relatively short document as to what the plan looks like and the goals that our office will be held accountable to for the benefit of the diocese as part of the bishop's team. In the last 3 minutes that we have on the call, and I apologize for lack of question time, but when you're going from one Zoom to the next, we've got to kind of do it that way. I do want to give a few moments to Glenn Leach, who was incredibly valuable in pulling together, looking at other diocesan plans, hearing what we were talking about over a period of months, and pretty quickly helping us move to a plan that we could give to the bishop, have him review, edit, along with Barb's editing, and ultimately say, this is the plan that we have in place. Glenn, talk about some of the takeaways from having been part of the process, and what are the things that people need to know about it? And you're muted. Still muted. Working to find the unmute button, Glenn.
There we go.
There you go.
Finally.
Thank you.
Slow. I think one of the most important things to remember is that this is based on Laudato Si, the encyclical, the entire encyclical. And up to this point, we have talked a lot about specific actions to reduce carbon footprint, to remove styrofoam, to avoid the use of items that get one use and then thrown out. All of these are important, but they're only a part of the total. The first part of Laudato Si is devoted to St. Francis, and it goes on, but I think the most important words are in the a prayer for our earth, which concludes Laudato Si, which reads in part, bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, that we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor and the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize we are profoundly united with every creature. And I think the most important part of Laudato Si is those connections. In it, the Holy Father speaks of our environmental crisis, and that's what it is, a crisis, as the consequence, not the whole substance, but it is the consequence of broken relationships, the relationships between us and God, between us and the rest of the peoples on earth, and between the relationship between all of us collectively across the earth and the rest of the created universe. So we must be listening to the cry of the poor as much as the cry of the earth as we go about implementing our Laudato Si plan.
Thank you. Yeah, Glenn read a whole lot of Laudato Si action plans. Different dioceses have undertaken this. There are approximately 185 dioceses in the United States, and there remains but about a dozen or a dozen and a half that have accepted the challenge in this first year of this Laudato Si platform. I am grateful that Bishop Zinkula gave approval to do so. I'm equally grateful that as many of you in your parishes, in your families, as individuals have understood those three relationships that Glenn has talked about. I know that I'm shorting conversation. So there are two things that I would ask you to do. One is, if you have additional comments or questions, please contact our office, particularly if you have interest in being part of developing a kind of a plan of sorts, or a group that is willing to think about Season of Creation 2023. And additionally, Amy, when she was running the show, would tell you, stay tuned next month, because the topic is, well, I don't have my act together in the same way that Amy Kirsten does. So if you have an idea for a topic, a timely topic, for the November Lunch and Learn submit that to us as well. We will give it thoughtful consideration. I do want to thank you for staying with us from one programming season to the next. Again, I appreciate all of the support that you show us. I'm so grateful that you are living out your faith in the way that you are, with eyes open as well as your hearts. And with that, I'm going to close the call. And as a good secular Franciscan or a Franciscan would say, peace and all good.